Hello everyone. We are going to make something like this, and we're going to do it the fast, easy, cheating way. Of course we're going to use all botanical colors, but I used this stencil and these new stencil brushes, and I didn't even know these existed, so it's kind of fun. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I was in the greenhouse, the geothermal greenhouse, one of them, and I was eating some of this chickweed right here, and I thought, well, that's a good idea. I've got tons of chickweed. I grow it in big pots, and I thought, why don't I make paint out of chickweed? So I'm just grinding this up with the molar. And it is easier to grind because it is fresh. I do have dried celery here and celery leaves, and we could use that too, but it's easier when it is fresh. So I'm just scooting this over with my spatula, and then I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to take my stencil, I'm going to put it over here like this. I was thinking of going off of the edge of the page a little bit, like this, and then I'm going to dab this in the juice and print it. These stencil brushes are made to help, and they're inexpensive. I got them off of Amazon. They're made to help prevent the ink or watercolor from running underneath the stencil, and they're really dense. They have lots of bristles in them. They're super dense. You can hardly even move them. And so that helps. That helps to get quite a bit of paint in there, but it helps it to not run all over, so then we're able to print something like this. Now I'm going to I've got a little bit of indigo here on the palette, but not very much. And somewhere here I have my indigo. Here is my bag of indigo. I'm just going to take, and this is real indigo powder from the leaves of the indigo plant. I'm just going to take a tiny bit because indigo goes a long way, especially when you're making paint out of it. And I'm going to put a little bit of liquid gum arabic in there. I want maybe a drop or two. And sometimes the best way to get a drop or two is to stick the handle of your paintbrush in and use that, because I don't want too much. So now I've got liquid gum arabic just because I want to thicken that a little bit. And then I'm going to put just one drop of water on there. And I need to wipe this molar clean. In fact, maybe I will just spray a bit of water on, wipe this off. Oh, throw the molar like that. That's important. Okay. And I'm going to take some of this off of the bottom of here. We don't want to waste that. And put my stencil back over here. And just dab this on like this. And I'm leaving it kind of a mottled color so it's not all the same color. And then I will take this same stencil, overlap it a bit. I've got to be very careful because I have not used the hairdryer or anything to dry this. I'm going to put a little bit of that green on there, and that is pretty wet. And then just highlight it with a little bit of this blue, so it's green and blue. And I overshot these stencils are pretty small, but that's okay. And then I'll put this one down a little bit and put a little extra water on here because I don't want all of these trees the same color. So I'm going to thin this a little bit. I'm just holding this down with my fingers. And see, now I've got a tree that is a different color. And I think I'll leave a space here. Put a tree here, maybe pretty dark blue. The goal, at least my goal, is to try to vary these enough that you cannot immediately tell that I'm using a stencil to make the trees on first glance. See how all of these are a different color? Now I'm going to take this stencil, and just kind of clean it by spraying some water on it and wiping it off with the cloth carefully, because I don't want to damage any of the... It's a pretty detailed stencil. And then I can bring this in here, and I want to do green again. And I think to do green, I'm going to have to mull some more color out of this. And I want this to overlap just a little bit. Okay, that was a little too runny, and if I had been using a normal brush instead of the stencil brush, that would have probably been a disaster. But luckily I wasn't. I'm going to clean this up a little bit just so I don't get it on here, and then I'm going to pause this and hit this with the hairdryer. Okay, I've hit this with the hairdryer, and while I was doing that, I've decided that I would like to put one more tree here. Probably just overlap this other one a little bit, and I would like this to be fairly dark because of the blow dryer. This paint has kind of dried out, so I've given it one little squirt of water, one little spritz. And I want this blue to be darker than the tree next to it. It probably would have been better to make that a green tree, but if wishes were fishes. Okay, I'm going to lift this up carefully, and it does overshadow that tree a little bit. Still, that tree should have been green, probably. And just so that I don't take any chance of smudging this, I'm going to go ahead and blow dry it for a second. Okay, now I'm going to put some water on, these are leftover dried rose petals that I mulled when I did the background for this. I did them out of these rose petals, and these are left over. They're just sitting here, and there's certainly enough color in there to use those again. I'm not going to do a whole wash background. This, if you're going to do a wash background, you have to do that first, but I want to do some wispy color in the background, and while I wait for that to hydrate a little bit, I want to take some clay, because I do want to either do clay or a gray color, and I can't think of an immediate way to make a gray color, so I guess we'll do clay. And I have some ground clay right here, and I don't need very much, just a little, and I'll put some, oh, I was going to say, where did my gum arabic go? Here it is. And again, I'm just going to use the back of the brush because you really don't want to put too much of anything on here, because it's easier to do a little than it is to try to clean up a lot. And here's the leftovers of the chickweed. Chickweed does not grow wild where I live, in the high desert of the Rocky Mountains. It's too dry and too hot here, so I have to grow chickweed in my greenhouse for eating and medicinal purposes. And I don't think I've said this before, but if you guys want to go see my greenhouses, you can go to my other channel, which is Geothermal Greenhouse Nation on YouTube, Geothermal Greenhouse Nation, and I have video tours of my greenhouses, my geothermal greenhouses on that channel. Now, let's try mulling this a little bit. Might need to add a little more water. Of course, we don't need tons of color out of this, so, because I think I'm just going to put some hints in. And it always takes a little longer to mull dry things than it does to do fresh things, of course. Alright, so let's start by putting the sky in here. To do that, what brush shall I use? Let's use this brush. Get a lot of clean water and really wet this down in here. And because this is more of a journal, watercolor journal exercise, I rarely use watercolor paper just because it's kind of expensive. So if I was, this is more like a practice, kind of a for fun thing, but if I was really going to make this to give to someone, or, as a Christmas card or something, then I would use actual watercolor paper. But for the purposes of just having fun, this works just fine. You do have to tape it down. And, you might even have to tape down real watercolor paper. It won't be as prone to, sorry, I'm talking and working at the same time. It won't be as prone to warping Okay, I think that looks nice. When this is dry, there's some bits of rose petal here. When this is totally dry, I can brush those off, so I'm not worried about that. I don't want those to stay there, but that's easily remedied. And then I kind of want to keep the idea of the snow here. So I'm going to, as opposed to this one, which has more color in here, I want to keep this more of a snowscape, and so I'm just going to use my palette knife to draw in some horizon lining. And I don't want to put too much on there because then it won't necessarily look like the snow. Maybe if I were using a longer palette knife, I could get some longer lines in here, do you think? And some thinner lines. So what do you think? I think we need a little more at the base of these to ground them in. Especially these trees because they're more behind the others. Okay, I think that looks good. I'm going to put both of these palette knives into the water just to soak a little bit. And I'm going to hit this with a blow dryer because I do want to add some birds into it. Okay, this is dry enough now that we can come in and kind of clean up a little bit of this residual. Some of this rose petal is still on here. Can brush that off. And then I'm going to take my liner brush. Let's see, which liner brush? Probably not a very big liner brush, this little liner brush. And I'm about to have to clean all of this indigo off of here, so I might as well use it for the birds. I want them to be dark enough that they can be seen and look kind of shadowy in the sky. That might not be enough paint. I might have to steal some off of the molar plate, which sort of doubles as a palette, doesn't it? And I'll put one right here. Yep, that's just a little bit dry. Of course, we don't want it too wet, but we don't want it too dry. We'll have to walk a fine line. And let's put one here. And where else should we put a bird? Make sure I've got enough paint on this liner brush to paint a bird. Put one there. It's smaller so it looks farther away. And I don't know, I think that's probably enough. I don't know that we need to do any more than that. I would say that that is probably done. So now we have the same picture, sort of two different ways. One where I have done the background wash first and then put the trees in. One where I put the trees in and then done the background wash. This one is a little more of a snowscape. And this would probably look even better if I would put in some highlights into that snowscape area. I just can't help myself, can I? Like, let's do some highlights in the snowscape area. But you have to admit that does kind of look nicer. And we could just do this in blue, but then it looks too much like the trees. So I think it's okay, because we've put the brown in there. I think that makes it okay. But what do I know? I'm just having fun making it up as I go. I'm dry brushing a little bit, I'm wet brushing a little bit. I don't want it to be too much, I guess. I feel like just a little bit more down here. Gotta know when to stop. This is the great thing about the liner brushes. You can't, this small liner brushes, you can't do too much damage because it doesn't pick up that much paint at a time. It makes it safer to work with. Also, we could, and maybe should, just pick up something dark here. Since these are stencils, one way that we can sort of help them look less like stencils is to just put in hints of a trunk on a couple of these. What do you think? Why not? Okay. Alright, I think that should be done. So, 2 different ways, and cheating a little bit with these, but it's fun, it's fast, it's relaxing. Please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment about what kinds of fun things, if you have any ideas about fun things we could do with these botanical colors. I am getting ready to start doing some t-shirt printing and some fabric printing after, in a couple days, probably next week. And I think that'll be fun, and, endless possibilities. There were so many things I wanted to do for the holidays this year that didn't get done, so we'll just have to wait for the holidays next year. But these are fun. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next video.